Hi, welcome back. Rob Brown back from Atlanta, back to Memphis. Brendan Martin, executive producer down in Ocala, Florida. Where do we even start? What a weekend. Number 14 that just was. Rivalry weekend. Lots of really just outstanding games. Coach Ellis Johnson, longtime defensive coordinator in the SEC, but more than anything, a proud alumnus of the Citadel over in Charleston, one of the elite schools in America. Discipline, the Lords of Discipline. Man, but a great book. But we're going to be talking with Coach Johnson. He can break these things down. It's like talking to Elon Musk about computers. So we'll get with him. Coach Matt Dean will check in.
Elon Musk about rockets.
Well.
Rockets.
Yeah, we'll talk about rockets.
More
with
about
Elon,
rockets.
Right.
He's more rockets than computers. He's like,
yeah. And well,
Elon's got rockets.
Supercomputer in Memphis.
Bill Gates has got computers, and Elon's got rockets.
Yeah, and it's fun talking about rockets. And Ken Capps is going to check in with us in the second half. He sent me a picture last night of he and Arch Manning on the field at Kyle Field after Texas went in there and took care of business against Texas A&M. Can you get too jacked up and too excited and hate your rival too much? I think that's the problem with A&M. With Auburn and Alabama and Florida State, there's respect. Even in the Egg Bowl, there's respect. But you got to be careful about that. Hey, smash that subscribe button. Take a picture of it with your camera on the QR code. Spent the last 9 days in Atlanta with Mallory, the oldest daughter, Alabama grad, still a good person, and the granddaughter, Chandler, already has her Alabama stuff at less than 2 years of age. She had it actually the night she was born, December 19th, 2 years ago. But Coach Matt Dean, we got Coach Ellis Johnson. Let's get started with you, Coach. Welcome to the show, and as always, thank you so much for coming and hanging out with us on Monday mornings, and we love you, and I get lots of comments. What happened? First, I want to start with the games that caught your eye, and we'll kind of take it from there.
Well, it's hard not to talk about that Georgia Tech game.
Yeah.
Boy, I actually fell asleep, didn't make it to the end.
Yeah.
I didn't see that many overtimes coming, but I thought it was going to get a little bit long. But what a great game. It's just a shame. I mean, I'm glad in many ways that Georgia pulled it out because it could create a mess. But Georgia Tech was so deserving in that one. And then moving on, there were only 2 games this week that involved top 25 teams playing each other. Mm-hmm. One of them was Texas A&M. One of them was Clemson, South Carolina. Both, pretty good ball games. But like I said, Texas took care of business. Texas A&M's been fading for about 6 weeks. They're not even in the top 25 now. In the polls, I don't know what the playoff poll will say. But hurting a lot of people's chances maybe to get in the playoffs if they have to look at one of those wins against Texas A&M. The Clemson, South Carolina game was a heck of a game. I had to hang out my shingle and be a psychiatrist over the weekend. My son wasn't in a good frame of mind.
Yeah.
But it was a really good game and good finish, great finish or whatever.
Yeah. Coach, we were in Atlanta watching Friday night, that Georgia Tech. And I had taken Georgia Tech to cover, and then one of my friends, the same one who picked Vanderbilt straight up, picked Georgia Tech in that one. And I said, I think Georgia Tech can win. And Channel 2, WSB in Atlanta, does this thing called SEC Live right after the game. And Brandon Boykin, I remember him, played at Georgia, defensive back, played in the NFL about 6 years. Incredible breakdown, but the embrace between Kirby Smart and Brent Key. I don't know Kirby Smart. Maybe you do, but there's a lot of respect that guy has for other coaches, and they respect him. But I think it started, and I don't know his dad either, Sonny Smart and his mother, high school coach. But I liked seeing that after the game. Georgia Tech, if they got anything, they got a lot of alumni with money. And I think what they saw in that game might get some checks written. But 8 overtimes, if you don't love college football after that, and the kids, I mean, Matt, that was incredible. And I am glad Georgia won, though. SEC.
Well, Coach is exactly right. I mean, if they don't win, it's a mess, I think. With it could affect some seeding and everything else. But what a performance by Haynes King, the quarterback from Tech. My son was part of his recruiting when my son was at A&M on their staff, and I just have a lot of respect for Haynes. He's a really tough kid. Has had some injuries throughout his career. He's transferred to Tech and really had a nice 2 years there. And quite frankly, 8 overtimes, and the way the new system is, with these 2-point conversions, they get to the situation where you just trade off on those. It's you just run out of 2-point plays, coach. And honestly, at the end of the game, it was I was also, you say fortunate or not, I was at the 7 overtime game between A&M and LSU years back, and it's just the one question. No, I mean, when we always talk about player safety and everything, you get to those situations. Are you better off in college football at some point looking at the NFL model of just a straight up 10-minute overtime where each team gets the ball, touchdown first wins? I don't know. I'm a longtime basketball coach, not a football coach, but it just seems like when you're in the 7th, 8th overtime, you got to be exhausted as a player out there.
Coach, along the line of what Matt just said, what are you in favor of? Because there's a lot we're going to cover today, but 8 overtimes. Fortunately, Georgia's got they got to play Saturday back at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. What would you think as a coach about that?
Yeah, I don't know what the right system is. I know I didn't like it. I felt like I was watching the end of a soccer match.
Yeah,
with those, whatever you call those kicks they do, and it really doesn't prove the best team. It becomes a mental and a physical endurance right there at the end. But I'm not criticizing the teams, that successfully pull it off. But it seemed like there could be a better way. I don't like the way the NFL does it either. The coin toss, it's been, statistically proven whoever gets the ball first, almost it's like a 60 or 70% win ratio.
Yeah.
So as soon as that coin's tossed, you got a deal there. So I don't know what the best way is. When I was coaching in high school, we had what they call sudden death, and they would put the ball on a 10-yard line and, give you similar to the college one, but they put it closer to the end zone and started, I think, from the 10 and went until somebody scored, and you always got another chance. You always had an even number of possessions. But I don't know what the best way is. I guess the best thing is win the game in regulation and don't go into them.
I remember my freshman year in college, Auburn was playing in Florida in the swamp and went for an onside kick at the end. And Lionel James swore up and down he had that ball. And Pat Dye's post-game speech in the locker room says, ain't a damn thing you can do about it. He said, football's a 60-minute game, and you got to take care of business and don't let that man in the striped shirt determine who's going to win the game. Because,
another thought I always have whenever I see one, when we were at Alabama, Coach Stallings had that great streak going. We went 34 unbeaten, 31 wins.
Yeah.
We had a tie ball game in there that cut the win streak at 31, but we went on to 34 before we lost. Had we had overtime back then, that might have been different too, but we didn't have it back then.
Yeah. That was that Tennessee game in 93 when David Palmer, the deuce, out of Jackson Olin High School there in Birmingham. Coach, that's one of the most exciting players I've ever seen. And by the way, Sherman Williams out of Blunt High School in Mobile, he was there when you were there, wasn't he, Coach?
Oh, yeah. But if you want to feel old, I ran into Prince Wembley the other day, one of our receivers, and was asking him about all those guys. Yeah. And I said, isn't David coaching somewhere for a high school, helping them out? He said, well, he's retired now, Coach.
Well, I have a friend of mine who knows David and Sherman Williams, and Sherman has a foundation trying to help people stay, on the right path in life. And he spent some time, we all know, over in Forest City, Arkansas, right outside of Memphis. And he told my friend, he said for all his years over there, he listened to sports radio, basically to keep his sanity every day out of Memphis. And he is doing a lot of good things now, and I'm glad to see that. Coach, Matt, and jump in here. You look at the SEC games. Who is your choice? And when you vote for Coach of the Year, and Matt, you've got years of being a head coach and assistant, and you do too as a head coach and assistant, Coach Ellis. Who would you pick as SEC Coach of the Year right at this moment? Because all you got is 12 games. Everybody's got 12 games in the books.
Go ahead, Matt.
Well, me personally, Coach, and this is just because of the way they finished. I think Shane Beamer's done a wonderful job. I mean, I was just listing my top 12. I don't know how it's going to play out tomorrow night. I think South Carolina should be the fourth representative from the SEC. I really do. If you go down, the Miami loss has created some chaos. I think, what's really going to be interesting, Coach, if SMU loses to Clemson, Clemson automatically gets the automatic bid. But does that mean that the ACC gets a second representative, or are they just going to have one? I would think, I haven't looked at SMU's resume all year. And now, obviously, they're in the championship game. So it's going to be really interesting. I think South Carolina, Shane Beamer's done a phenomenal job. That's just me personally.
Yeah, on the coach of the year, I don't know who could argue against that. I'm not saying that he should get it, but
Right.
certainly wouldn't be anybody arguing about it if he did get it.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, we don't know who's going to win the championship yet, so hard to. But at this moment, nobody's done a better coaching job. That's for sure.
Yeah.
I don't know how they're going to get that last spot because, we don't know. Tuesday night we'll know. But if you look at the two polls that have come out, they've got Alabama in front of South Carolina. Neither one of them have to play a conference championship game.
Right.
They don't have a game to affect their outcome. They got to sit there and wait. And I think both of them deserve to get in, but I do think that it's going to be almost impossible for that committee to move Carolina above Alabama. And to me, it looks like one of those two are going to slide into that 12th spot. There's so many of these conference games that could go crazy, though. I mean, if UNLV beats Boise and who's the other? Arizona State. If Iowa State beats Arizona State, I mean, it's going to be an absolute mess. So we don't know anything, and we really don't know anything Tuesday night. What we will know is who that committee is trying to position to jump in when something does crazy happen.
Coach, and I think I speak on behalf of a lot of people, if you're just Joe Sixpack living in Ocelot, Iowa, or Des Moines, and you just love the game, I mean, how can you not look at this season and say this is better than anything we could have imagined? Because here we are, December 2nd, and we still don't know who the 12 teams are. We're going to know tomorrow night. But we went into week 14 with all kind of questions. I mean, I think, now I detest the portal and NIL. I'm just telling you, but we got to deal with it. And if you don't embrace it, you're going to be like the dodo bird and the dinosaur. But I just think I believe in grinding it out, man. You can't quit. But now that being said, I want to ask you about Billy Napier, because you've said some things, and you've met Billy, you know him, you've recruited against him preseason, and it's on tape on the Buddy Martin show. We all had to pick with Buddy and Brendan and Lauren and Franz and Ben Troop and everybody. It's on tape. I picked Florida to go 8-4. And I used the term that Roman Harper and Cole Kubelik, I got it from them. I always give credit where you get things, called logo fever. And everybody looks at that schedule, and I said, well, look, you think about, here we are in August. Those teams that you think are going to be so great aren't all going to be that good, and some that you don't think are going to be good are going to be better than expected. And before they started that 5-game stretch, I picked them to win 2, if not 3 of the last 5, and they ended up winning 3 of them. DJ Lagway comes in, kind of talk about Florida. And I know I'm talking a lot. I'm wound up, but this is a great story.
Yeah, I think the two main things is Florida's patience with him, talking about Billy, and I think they made the right decision, sent the right message during a critical time in the season for the team. And the second thing is getting Lagway, finally getting him into the lineup and him returning healthy after that brief time where he was hurt. With him in the lineup, they're a good football team because they can score, they can throw the football around, and they've been playing decent defense all year long. So I see a fairly bright future for him. I don't know how much they lose off that roster, but I think he's recruited extremely well, and he's got another solid class on the way. And Lagway's the key. But Florida made the right decision hanging on to Billy.
Yeah, Matt.
Yeah, absolutely. I mentioned Coach Beamer. The job, the way Florida's finished, and the way Lagway's come in and just been. He's got a highlight reel, some really great plays, Coach, the last few games. And honestly, their defense has come along. recently in recruiting. They flipped some kids, so there's momentum heading into the bowl game. I saw on there a couple questions by our viewers on some seeding questions, and honestly, I think Tennessee right now. I just was really impressed. They got down early in that game, rivalry game, and they came back and controlled the rest of the game, the last 3 quarters. I think Ohio State is interesting discussion, Coach, because you go to that game, it's your game, it's the game, and you're number 2 in the country, and you score 10 points, and you lose at home. I don't think they deserve a home game in that first round. Personally, I would seed them maybe 9, and I'd put like either Tennessee or Alabama with them. And I think let's figure it out. I'd send them on the road. I think Michigan. Yes, it was everything for them this season. They had nothing to lose. But I've watched Michigan this year. I followed the Big Ten. I grew up in Iowa, big Iowa fan. Oregon, where my son's a staff member at Oregon. Oregon went in there and handled them pretty well. And I know it's different parts of the season, Coach. Certain guys are healthy, certain guys are not. I understand that. I'm a coach as well. But I watched that game for 4 quarters. In Ohio State, offensively, Will Howard had a really off day, unfortunately, for the Buckeyes. So I would not reward them with a home game. I think really I would send them to an SEC venue, Tennessee or even Alabama, South Carolina. I would, because I think you look at the body of the work that the SEC teams in the top 12 have done compared to Ohio State. Ohio State has a 23-17 road win over Penn State. Okay, you go look at the rest of their schedule; they don't have a lot of quality wins.
I certainly don't disagree with that, and I'm not as astute on this stuff on the seedings as you've looked at it more deeply. I think the weather, if these southern teams have to travel, weather could be a factor in college playoffs now for the first time in history, because they don't have these neutral site bowl games in warm weather. I tell you, everybody's got freckles though, and I agree with you. I haven't seen Ohio State in a critical situation show up offensively, and I couldn't disagree at all about the seeding. The other thing is, all of these teams have had quarterback issues except for a few, and I really don't think the SEC in general is as good as it has been over the years. Physicality, yes. The speed of the game, yes. But I see some depth issues. I guess it's the portal causing all that. I see depth issues, and I see quarterback problems. They're probably 70% of the teams in the SEC had to change quarterbacks at some point during the year, either because of play or because of injury.
Yeah.
And it's been sort of my little expression, they all got freckles, and none of them are dominant enough to take care of business every weekend. If they don't play well, they're vulnerable.
Yeah. Coach, we got to ask, and this question is being brought up by comments, and I love these from our viewers, about what happened on the field after Michigan, Ohio State. Again, you've got the credibility, both you and Matt. I want your thoughts on how they should handle that, whatever punishment are doled out. I mean, guys are getting jacked up. This is alpha male culture, but I can just tell by looking at you, I would not want to piss you off if I was one of your players, because that was not good, and pepper spray and all that stuff. I mean, kind of make some sense out of it.
Yeah, I don't know where it's all coming from, but I'm one of those dinosaurs you mentioned a while ago. I don't like fans, period, being on the playing field or a court until the teams are cleared completely. And there's a way to stop it. But I think sometimes the NCAA or whomever, they get more concerned about appealing to the fans. And I understand the fans are important. You haven't got big time sports if you don't have fans. So, at the same time, get the players off the field. And then if you want to let the fans come down on the field or the basketball court or wherever, that's fine. You've seen it too many times. And, of course, they give them one of these fines. They fine in each team $100,000. They probably made $40 million at the game. So it's not really sending a message.
Yeah.
And they're going to have to stop it, or somebody's going to get hurt, and they're going to have a lawsuit. It's happened before.
Yeah. I mean, Matt, you saw it, and Brendan, everybody in America saw what happened. And there was, there was a little pushing on the sidelines in the Iron Bowl. That's part of it. Coach, I want to ask you about Vandy, Tennessee, and there's people on here saying Vandy just doesn't have the athletes. Well, we know that, but Clark Lee said at media days when he was addressing everybody in the main room, Brendan and I were in there back in July. He said, every player on this roster has signed up for what our vision of Vanderbilt football is. Like saying none of them, are from any other coaching staff. They all believe and have bought into what we're doing. This is, 6 wins. I think the Liberty Bowl would love to have them come to Memphis, whoever. But Diego Pavia is having to fight like hell to be eligible to come back next year. Miami's got a guy on the team that's been there. He's in his 9th year. I don't know what's going on with that. But talk about Tennessee and Vandy and where you think each team goes from here.
Well, I think Tennessee's a good football team, and they've had a defense that's shown up all but one game this year. I'm not sure about the quarterback. I'm starting to have visions of DJ Ungale at Clemson. I don't know what it is, but things aren't clicking for that kid. But he's a talented kid, and Josh Heupel obviously can coach a quarterback, so he'll get better. But that was the only thing that was a puzzle for me this year. They never got on track offensively. Vandy, on the other hand, I don't mean to detract from it. Bobby Johnson did just as good a job at Vandy. He went to bowl games a couple of times. When you went to play Bobby Johnson, we went up there one weekend with Coach Spurrier. We got our butt beat. Yeah. So they were a competitive, really good, solid football team when he was there. But I do think he's done a fantastic job, and I think he's got them to where people better come in ready to play or they can beat you. Now, at the end of the day, they're still down in the bottom half of the conference. They're going to have a losing record in the conference. And a lot of people that are crowing about these wins they had over a top 25 Vandy team, they're not in the top 25 now. And not because of Clark Lee. He's done an excellent job. But the fact of the matter is they're not a top 25 team. So some of the teams that, using those as quality wins, they were good wins. Yeah. But they weren't top-notch quality wins.
Yeah. Matt?
No, I agree with everything Coach says. And honestly, I think you look at the past weekend, when you get 10, 11 weeks of tape on people, you start to figure things out a little bit. And, Tennessee's been able to run the football. I agree with Coach. Offensively, from my perspective, they have to have a little bit more balance in the playoffs in order to advance. But that being said, their defense, they're a tough out. They got a legitimate championship level defense when you look at the field. I also look at some things, on their schedule, when you look at the game against Arkansas and you look at the performance after the first couple drives against Georgia, they were kind of handled, and I think the quarterback issue for them, when he plays really well, they are really, really good. When he doesn't, if he plays a little bit more pedestrian, they can be beat, and that has happened twice to them. But the one thing that I think that I want to make a comment on this, we knew that 12 teams wasn't going to be perfect, because obviously we weren't happy with 4 teams, but you're always going to have a debate on 4, 5, 6, and 11, 12, 13, 14, however you want to slice it. But I do have, my story for the year is outside of the SEC. I still think the job that Kurt Ciganetti has done in Indiana is remarkable. I know their schedule may have been different than other people's schedule, but to win 11 games in Indiana, it's a basketball school, gentlemen. Yeah. It's a phenomenal job, and I really think it's going to be interesting on the seeding, Coach, because if Indiana gets a home game, and like you said, you mentioned weather, you're looking at December 20th weekend. Man, it could be really bad weather outside in Indiana. So if you have to be an SEC team and travel up to Bloomington, that's where I think Tennessee, because they run the football and play defense, they may have a chance to win at one of those venues, to be honest with you. But I think after watching Tennessee this weekend, the way they came back, I'd reward Tennessee with a home game if I was on that committee.
Coach, would you want to be playing December 20th, 21st at Neyland Stadium against Tennessee? You've been there. That's a house of horrors for a lot of people, not Tennessee fans.
Yeah, it's a tough place to play for sure. But my record up there is pretty good. But I've always gone with some pretty good guys. I've been up there with Gene Stallings and Steve Courier. So we did pretty good up there. But
you did.
Yeah, I just – if they just could get Matt's right on target, if they could just get the throwing game in gear, they are almost impossible to beat because their defense is really solid now. And when they got some ability to control the ball or get points where the other team's got to play uphill, they're impossible. Now, if you can, stay even with them or get a touchdown ahead, you can run on the defense a little bit and keep the ball away from them and everything. So, they're not perfect, but like I said, everybody's got freckles. My problem with Indiana, and I totally agree with Matt, unbelievable to go in there the first year and go 10-1 at Indiana. I mean, Kurt might be coach of the year. And he's certainly. But I looked at something on all these teams that are right now hanging around that 12-13 mark and have a chance to be an at-large entry. They had 0 wins over top 20 teams at the time they played them, and they had 0 wins over any now. And the one team they played in the top 20 was Ohio State, and they got manhandled. And we just got through talking about Ohio State a while ago. They're not the most, prolific offense in the Big Ten. They've looked kind of pedestrian at times.
Yeah.
So I really don't know how good Indiana is, but I know the coaching job he did was fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah, we were talking, make sure specifically about SEC Coach of the Year. Yeah, National Coach of the Year, Kurt Signetti, first year from James Madison to go 11-1. That was unreal. I was watching, Coach, we've eaten so much in the last 9 days. I feel like junior samples from Hee Haw. I mean, we were at another feast. It was Saturday over in Atlanta. It was, our son-in-law's father had us over. It was insane. And they're all Tennessee fans, all of them. It was unreal. And, man, they love the Vols. And it was a lot of fun. The interest, and Matt's right, it's the teams that don't get in there. And I can remember, you remember a big guy from, I think he was from East St. Louis or St. Louis, the defensive lineman that played for Alabama named James Gregory?
Yeah. James was our nose tackle. He's the only player on that starting 11 that didn't get drafted in the NFL. But he was still a good player at that position and did a great job for him.
Yeah, I remember a scene of him against Tennessee in '92. Was Heath Schuler the quarterback? He picked him up and just bear hugged him. It looked like, Plowboy Frazier doing a suplex and wrestling with Gordon Soley making the call. There were some dominant teams. And what was the other player? We mentioned 3 families the other day from Town Creek, Alabama, and I'll be going back down through there to Athens, Alabama soon. There were the Goods, and there were the Langhams. And there was one, was it Terrence Lynch that played at Alabama?
Yeah, he was from there too. But the other family, gosh, you caught me off guard, and I've drawn a blank. But there were 2 other brothers that were all cousins, and that came up there too.
I mean, and you got it, Matt. Coach knows because he recruited over there. But all right, Coach, before we go to another serious question, I got to ask you another one. I've asked a number of coaches this. And I think Coach O said it in an interview one time. You eat a lot when you go visit kids on recruiting visits in the house. And I said, someone asked him, and I asked another coach, what do you do if you eat something and it's just really, really bad and you're in a recruit's house? And he goes, that's a simple answer. You ask for seconds.
I haven't had that experience very often, believe it or not. I must have set my home visits not around meal times. Yeah. But I think I've only had to sit down at the table and eat a meal with a recruit one time, and Coach Spurrier was with us. But I wanted to ask this. I think Matt could identify with this. I tell you what, these conference championship games might wreak havoc.
Yes.
With this playoff seeding, and it didn't take long for coaches in basketball. I think back to my ACC background. Growing up over here. The ACC basketball tournament used to be an absolute, that was a hard ticket to get, maybe harder than any other NCAA playoff. And now it's almost, you could get over there and get punished having to play through that tournament, and you get the automatic seed. But now that it's 64 teams, it really doesn't make that much difference. And I kind of compare it also to the SEC baseball tournament. That for years was a big, big deal. And then all of a sudden, people started realizing, the teams are getting knocked out early. but are still really good teams, they go home and they rest their pitching arms for a week or two, and they are making a better run in the baseball playoffs than the team that had to hang around over there and win 8 games to win the baseball tournament. I think you're going to have the same effect on all these conference championship games. If these things go wrong, and we saw it go wrong, with Syracuse this weekend, if you get the wrong team winning these conference championship games, it is absolutely going to screw up those last 12 or 13, 14. You're going to see some bad situations that the committee has to make choices on those last 3 or 4 spots in the bracket.
Matt, I'd like your thoughts on what Coach just said. That makes a lot of sense.
Coach, you are so right. And we've been talking about this, Coach. I'm usually on Thursdays. I've been talking about this the last 5 weeks because I have a couple problems with first of all, I'm just thrilled that we're talking about 12, but I think they're going to have to tweak it again, Coach. And I'll give you a couple examples why you're 100% right. First of all, even though Oregon, where my son's on that staff right now, they're undefeated, they're not a dominant number 1. But on the flip side, if they go to the Big Ten championship game, and let's say they lose a close game, they're going to go to 5. They're going to have to play a play-in game to get to the Final Four. And I think you're going to have to look at a future discussion when you have the ACC and the Big 12 just trying to get one team in. Is it fair? Let's say next year you got SEC 1 and 2 playing in the conference championship game. The loser shouldn't fall beyond 4, in my opinion, but that's not the way the system is set up. So you're 100% correct. You're getting punished for playing in that game, even though they're not going to go away because of the money and the tradition. So there are some things about the expanded playoff that are hard to deal with. And honestly, Kiffin was right with his statement. Whether or not you want to be in that game, I want to be in that game, but you can get punished for being in that championship game the way the format is. Another thing I think that's real simple, if you're going to play these championships games out, we don't necessarily need to give the Big 12 a bye in the first round if we think they're the 11th best team in the poll. They need to go on the road then. So you play these championship games, you reseed 1 through 12, and however the chips may, that's what determines it. So you're not punishing a team as much for losing in that championship game, nor are you rewarding a lower conference champion with a bye that may be 8, 9, 10 seed. That's just my opinion, guys. And I don't know, Coach, how you fix it, but it needs to be tweaked. But I'm just excited we're having this conversation because we're trying to fix the greatest sport playoff of all time.
Well, your basketball background, you're on top of this seeding much more than I am because I just hadn't studied it, but you can kind of see it. Yeah. And I agree with you. I think they've still got to have their games. There's a lot of money in it. Of course, all this is about money. If it wasn't about money, we'd still be playing bowl games. But that bus left the station back when I was coaching. Right. And, I am a dinosaur. I wish we'd go back to bowl games. But a lot of what is being decided on who gets in the playoffs is based on polling and not a lot on head-to-head. And that's where it was back when you just had bowl games and somebody voted on it. And everybody said, that's not the way to do it. Well, that's really what you're doing now. That's right. And I tell you, man, if you have to play 3 in a row with college-age kids, that's different than taking an NFL team and playing 3 in a row. There's going to be very few teams that can handle that. The one that's showed me that they may have the grit, grind, and the mental toughness to do that is Georgia. Yeah. Everybody else has had a tough challenge at some point in time, but you said there's no way in the hell they're going to be able to do this, and they didn't. Georgia has done it 2 or 3 times this year. That's a hard deal, man, especially if one of them's on the road. Yes. If you play 3 games in a row, and then you're about worn out before you can play that last one.
Yeah. Let me say something about and Coach, stay with us, man. We always want you to. I just always figured you were busy, but Coach, if you'll stay with us the whole show, Ken Capps will be on from out in Texas. He's Football Writers Association of America, covers the Longhorns, the Aggies, Oklahoma, and the whole SEC in college football. Winter Timber Outdoors, new sponsor of ours out of Athens, Alabama, right near Town Creek in Decatur, over there on Tennessee Valley. Open every day of the week. All your shooting sports, duck hunting, which right now the split is ending today at sundown, and then we'll resume on the 10th. Duck hunting, turkey hunting, quail, pheasant, grouse, prairie chickens, dove, big game hunting, elk, moose, whatever. They've got you covered. Winter Timber Outdoors. Rite, Masimara, GPS, BOGO, buy one, get one free. One thing you'll notice when you go in the store in Athens, Alabama, is that the staff is trained. They got over 2,000 shotguns, rifles, and handguns in stock in the store. Deer stands, all the food, all the gear. As far as clothing, they're a big-time Sitka dealer, okay? Dixie decoys. They've got, you name it, they've got it. Duck camp gear. They're going to grow the business in the footprint that is the Southeastern Conference. They broke ground last week on the new store down in Auburn on Opelika Highway out by the mall. You'll see it. It is going to open in June, maybe earlier. They're open every day of the week. Again, take a picture of that QR code. We are proud to have them as a sponsor. And also, I want to say about Hewlett and Dunn Boot and Clothing Company. Charles, JM, everybody out there, if you're listening, we had a lot of people. Audrey is just a model for Hewlett and Dunn, and I wear their stuff every day. People just like, wow, over 7,000 pairs of men's and women's boots. They've got Duckhead, Filson, Barber, STS, Schaefer, Pendleton. If you've got old boots and you want to get them restored, they've got 2 bootiers. One of them's a guy in Mobile they send them to. They will restore your boots to the best condition, and you'll be like, wow, I can't believe this. They've got the luggage out there from Filson. They've always got a 50% off rack. Top quality. They're open Monday through Saturday, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. And through Christmas, they're open on Sundays, noon until 5 p.m. All right, Coach, I want to look, around the SEC, and I'm gonna start, and then Matt, I'll do the same. We start with Alabama. This team, they got Auburn in the Iron Bowl. Auburn needs a quarterback an offensive lineman. There's a lot of things, but when you're breaking down tape of Alabama, and they're still in, hoping they're going to get in the playoff, how do you rank this Alabama team? What's different about Alabama right now than when Nick Saban was coaching? I like that kind of coaching, the way he does it.
Consistency.
Yeah.
And I've said it since the first of the season. Even when they were mashing people 30 points, they were doing it on athleticism, explosiveness, destructive things on defense, etc. But there were a lot of mistakes, penalties, stupid penalties after the whistle, lot more, I guess, in between snaps, jumping around, all this other hooping and hopping. And I'm not saying other teams don't do it. I'm saying these guys have been playing there the last 3 or 4 years, haven't been doing it. And I think a lot of things changed, and that's okay. But DeBoer's got a win-loss record that nobody can argue with.
Yeah.
But the atmosphere, the practice approach, and all that, I think a lot of those things changed quite a bit. And when that happens with 18, 19-year-olds, a lot of them can't handle it. So I just see a lot of inconsistency with them. And even when Alabama was not playing their best game, when Saban was there, they'd still be sort of consistent, and they'd end up grinding their way out of a bad situation. You go back last year, and it wasn't about second or third ball game. He benched Milroe and went down to South Florida and had to beg and plead to get out of there with a win. Yeah. But he wasn't going to do it by running around, seeing who the best clown or who the best athlete was. And I just don't see the consistency week in and week out. They have not come to play with consistency. Been too many mistakes at critical times.
Yeah, Matt, and you looked at against Auburn. Auburn had multiple chances and didn't convert. I mean, that's just football. You got 60 minutes to get the job done. Kalen DeBoer's one-loss record is 113 and golly, 15 losses maybe. What have you seen out of him in the first year that thinks he can get Alabama back to that Saban toughness, or is that just not him?
Well, we are talking about perhaps the greatest of all time to do it, right? Yeah. So it's even though DeBoer has a fine winning percentage, coach is spot on with the consistency argument, because I'll even look at the first half of the Georgia game. They're up, was it, Coach, 28-7, 28, I'm not sure.
28
And Georgia
nothing,
comes back and takes the lead in that football game. You know, a lot of times because of the format, we don't know what an Alabama would do against an Indiana, but it'd be a hell of a time to watch. I would love to see that matchup. I think even though South Carolina is very deserving, I think if there's going to be a fourth SEC team, Alabama beats them head-to-head this year. You look at that win, there's probably a good argument that Alabama gets in over South Carolina if those are the last two teams for that last spot. That's thought number one. Thought number two, I wouldn't want to play Alabama in the playoff. I wouldn't want to play them because I just think from a line of scrimmage situation, you're going to have to be very multiple to beat them. You're going to have people on the perimeter. You're going to be able to have to convert third and shorts. And Alabama, even though Auburn moved the football, Rob, you were right about your assessment. Auburn needs that quarterback to finish drives, to finish situations, to beat teams like Alabama. But I'm going to tell you what, Auburn's coming. They got a lot of good players in that football team. Yeah. Their class is going to be outstanding this year. But like for Alabama, for me, you know, we knew Kalen DeBoer because my son's team competed against him last year. And, you know, the year they had in Washington, you look at what he had. He had Michael Penix Jr., who had a phenomenal year. He had guys in the outside. Roman Dunze's playing in the NFL. Jalen McMillan's playing in the NFL, I think, with Tampa Bay. So they had all those edges, and they had a great offensive line. And I think if there's anything I would – and I'm not taking a shot at him, but at times this year, if you look at that consistency argument, he's tried to make Milroe too much of a pocket guy as opposed to just a football player. Because Penix Jr. was more of a pocket guy. And I think you look at the later wins, especially at the LSU win where they were dominant. Milroe broke the edge and was very difficult to contain. Not much different from the quarterback from South Carolina. Sellers, young man, made 2 highlight reel plays against Clemson that were just phenomenal, Coach. I mean, I got to tell you what, Clemson had them in situations where they would look like they're going to win the football game, and Sellers just took it away this weekend.
Yeah. And, Coach, real quick, another thing, and Brendan just reminded me, what also happened with Florida State and Florida, again, you know, I believe in what you believe in, Coach. I mean, just your honor is dearer than your life. You don't pull that crap. You know, you yes sir, no sir, yes ma'am, no ma'am. You hold the door open for people, for ladies. You stand up when they come to the table. That Florida State, Florida
Rob.
incident after the game. Yeah, we got you. Yeah, are you there? Okay. Hopefully, Coach.
Rob, can I say one quick thing?
Yeah.
Okay, we're talking about post-game. Did you see what Sarkisian did? He went to the middle of the field, got his guys off the middle of the field.
Yeah.
Okay.
He did. Yeah.
And I tell you, I've coached 30-plus years. One time I was in a court rush situation. We won an NCAA tournament basketball game. We were hosting a regional. We beat the 1 seed at our place, which is unique because normally we'd have been on the road. Mm-hmm. And we won a big game, 59-58. And we did have security there. But I'll tell you, there is a little bit of responsibility on the coach. If he sees his guys doing some things, that's why I thought it looked like Ryan Day didn't want to do anything to get his guys away from that whole melee either. And that's just from what I've seen highlight-wise, you've got to be an active participant if it gets to that point. Yeah.
Coach, in response to what Matt just said about Florida State, Florida, and Ohio State, Michigan, what do you think the way it was handled? I did watch Sarkisian. The Sark went out there, pulled him off immediately. And there's no other way to do it. I mean, Coach, you saw those incidents. I'm just going to throw a swag at you. Scientific wild-ass guess. That's a term my dad gave me years ago. If one of those players is out there taking a swing and he hits you in the face, what are you going to do as a coach? I can't even imagine. I mean, when I was at Auburn, Pat and I was there, you would have probably run 500 stadiums wearing a vest filled with sand at 5 o'clock in the morning until you ran those things off. I kind of makes some sense. Matt, I love what you just said. Coach?
Me or Matt?
Yeah, to you. Yeah. I'm sorry. I got two coaches.
I apologize for everything. I had somebody cut in and put me offline for a minute.
Okay.
You know, I've never had to get involved in one of those. Most of I was in the press box coaching. But my only rule, if you ever go try to break up a fight with a bunch of players, is come from behind. Don't go trying to get in between them. Come from behind and pull backwards.
That's right.
Yeah. Hell, I still remember 1986. Memphis was playing Arkansas State, and there was a fight after the game on the field. And one of the Memphis players, I'll never forget, took his helmet off in the middle of the fight and got knocked out cold. I'm like, you shouldn't have done that. Okay. Let's bring in Ken Capps. Ken, not in the Hook'em Hut this morning, but we got Coach Ellis Johnson on here, Coach Matt Dean. I got your pictures last night on the field at Kyle Field, you and Arch Manning. You covered that one. I'm going to just throw this at you, Ken. I think you can get too excited, too jacked up, and hate your rival too much, because I look at Florida State, Florida, Auburn, Alabama. There's respect. Georgia, Georgia Tech, there was respect on the field with Brent Key and Kirby Smart. They're warriors. But someone sent me a thing this morning. I saw it on X last night. Since A&M had a 12-year head start on Texas, invested over $1 billion into the football program, and Texas comes in there and cleans their clock, they have got to be the most frustrated fans in the world. You're a Texas alum, in the interest of full disclosure, but you're a true, you're a true grit journalist. You're always fair and straight up. So and take the ball and run, and then we'll bounce it around. This is great stuff on this Monday edition of Sidelines.
Yeah, I've been listening to you guys, and I've got a couple of thoughts on the playoffs and about that flag planting too. So I'm sure we'll get to that. Well, let me just tell you who summed it up best, and that was Coach Mike Elko, who said after the game, Texas totally annihilated us. So that is not Ken Capps talking. That is Coach Elko talking. And I was surprised, frankly. I really was, that Texas came in there and dominated that physically on both sides of the ball in that kind of atmosphere. I mean, for God's sakes, the Aggie band was sitting right behind the Texas bench, and they still brought in speakers and put them behind the Texas bench to pump in even more sound to make it even louder, so the Texas players couldn't hear anything. And you're right, the hatred and the just venom that I saw outside the stadium prior to going in. I mean, I'm glad I was dressed like this. If I'd have had on any Texas clothes, I don't know how to win out there. But I mean, the Aggies were jacked up, the fans were jacked up, the team was jacked up, and they just ran into a brick wall with the Texas D. And of course, I've heard y'all talking about, Georgia's built for this kind of thing. Carson Beck's been playing a lot better, but I tell you, there is no better defense in the country right now than Texas, and I'm including Georgia in that. I mean, for Pete's sake, to stop A&M on those 2 fourth down drives there in the first quarter, which would have been a huge momentum builder for them. But then in the fourth quarter, after they had just blocked that punt and were, started out on the Texas 13-yard line, 4 downs, they tried to punch it in, and Texas stopped them on the 1-yard line, and that was just a deal breaker. So I was impressed by how Texas played on both sides of the ball. I mean, obviously Ewers still has his problems, with the pick six. That was the only thing that the A&M managed to get on the scoreboard. Still got that fumble because as coach was talking about, somebody came at him from behind and whacked the ball out of his hand as he was trying to scramble. But boy, was I really impressed with how Coach Sarkisian thought out that way to get Arch Manning in the game. And, it only worked once, but it worked for a touchdown. And that touchdown made all the difference in the world. The Aggies figured it out later on. But I think you saw the start of Arch Manning's Heisman campaign for 2025. So that's kind of my sum of it. But let me just say one thing though. There were so many funny things that happened. I'm sure we'll get to those. But let me say this: when you get to the press box in Kyle Field, I've never been to the new press box. So now the press box is on the other side of the field than what it used to be. And it is beautiful. It's state of the art. Alan Cannon and the SID department's done a great job there. But there's a piece of paper that is on your spot there at your desk that says, for those of you that are newcomers to our press box, do not be alarmed when the press box starts swaying when the Aggies sing the Aggie War Hymn. And they're absolutely right. When the Aggies are swaying, you see all that on TV, it moves the concrete and the press box is going back and forth like this. I mean, I'm glad they said something about that. Otherwise, you'd think they were having a earthquake there in College Station.
Yeah. Point of order here. Dad's an architect, and Maury Gaston, I see, is watching the show, mechanical engineer. There is no tensile. Concrete has no natural tensile strength. So you have to put rebar in there, and that allows for sway. And the higher a building goes up, there's more movement. I've actually, in 1982, when Lionel James out of Albany, Georgia, Daughtery High School, reeled off an 87-yard touchdown run. Auburn was playing Georgia. They were number 1 in the country. He went 87 yards, and I was in the south end zone in the drunk tank, I'll admit, with my Sigma Nu Pledge brothers. The stadium did sway, and I was like, man, I'm not drinking anymore. But later, years later, the university architect, Tom Tillman, and my dad and I were walking in the stadium, and he said, it actually is built like that. So that is cool. Coach, have you ever been in a press box that's been swaying before? That would be kind of, especially if you were out in California in the San Andreas fault line. That scared the bejesus out of you.
No, I've been in that same stadium and it was swaying. And that was before the additions. We were in the other side, but it was awesome. I don't know why they had to do all that, but it was right after that season. They tore it down, rebuilt. I came back over with South Carolina just as an analyst. But the first time, it was when they had Manziel, and we came out there with our Auburn team that went to the national championship. And, I mean, I'm acrophobic. And we got up in that press box. Now, this would be the old press box, but I think it's still over there. But your seat is up against the glass, and there's a little counter, and it's down around your knees. And this was for the visiting coaches. And I don't know if this is on purpose or not, but there was a note in there that told you, do not be concerned about the swaying. Well, I'm thinking they're just trying to get in our head. And I'm already scared to death. I'd have to push back from that thing sometime because I'm serious. I'm acrophobic. And of course, it was a hell of a game. We completely stopped Johnny Manziel. They only scored 42, but we scored 45. But it was a hell of a game, and that thing swayed a number of times.
Oh, yeah.
I don't care what kind of note they put there. It didn't help me. I was scared to death. Couldn't wait to get on that elevator and get the hell out of there.
Well, Coach, I'll tell you this, too. I'll give SID Alan Cannon and his crew a lot of shout-out this morning because they had a hell of a buffet going up there and had some really good Texas barbecue for all the media. And as you can imagine, there was media from around the country there. I was sitting next to a reporter from the Wall Street Journal who came down from New York to cover the game. And we had a really nice discussion. She was asking me why Bevo wasn't there. And I told her, I said, well, look around. I'm sure you guys saw it on Saturday night, too. I mean, there's not a stitch of grass for Bevo to stand on in that stadium. There were people all over the sidelines of that field in both end zones. And thankfully, they let the media go down to the field with 6 minutes left in the fourth quarter. And I was on a beeline for that. I'm on a beeline for that elevator to get down there. And I got down there just in time to be standing in the back of that end zone when A&M ran that 4th and 1 play. And I mean, you could see it from the back of the end zone that the running back was not getting in there. Ethan Burke, who's from Westlake High School right here in Austin, I mean, he jammed that guy, threw him for a 3-yard loss. And I mean, that was all she wrote for A&M. I was just surprised. And of course, the Aggies are calling for the Aggie fans are calling for Colin Klein's head today. But they were just, I couldn't believe they didn't try something other than running straight up the middle on that Texas defensive line, because, even though they lost Sweat and Murphy to the pros, that defensive line is still one of the best in college football right now, and you're just not going to run through them. And of course, the guy that made the hit also that did a lot of good. I mean, I think he really got passed over for the Butkus Award finalist list is Anthony Hill Jr. from right up where I live in the Metroplex there in DeSoto. He's having an All-American season at linebacker. And I was really thinking they were going to, pop a little short pass somewhere, or maybe, or of course, Reed take it for a run. But that's one other thing I wanted to say. I talked about this on Friday, that I thought the key to the game was how the defenses were going to play, and how if Texas could control Marcel Reed, well, they controlled him all right. A&M only had 98 yards of rushing, and 24 of that was on one Reed scramble. So take away that Reed scramble, and he didn't get away from Texas at all. And of course, Texas had him on the run all the time with that blitz. And I think that was also a real key to the game, was because, Reed's dangerous back there. And, again, people were on his case all Saturday night as I was driving back to Austin at, 1:00 in the morning, and been reading it all day on Sunday. But I tell you what, I mean, that guy's got some legs, and I'll be interested to see if Connor Wegman doesn't enter the portal right after the season.
Sorry, we had. It looks like we just. Rob's having some issues out there in the cherry farm. I don't know.
I'm sure he is, Brennan.
I'm sure he is.
He had a lot of issues.
He's so much better when he was in Atlanta. It's like he had real internet and everything. I got to get.
I'm at my mom. I'm at my 90-year-old mother's house today in Austin, Texas, and I'm.
And you know what, Ken? And you know what, Ken? It looks like it. No, I just gotta tell you, I'm gonna be honest. You're like black and white, bro. You're like standard def, but it's all right. We made it happen. Hey, Matt, I know you were about to jump in there, and I just want to say thanks to you guys for hanging in with us on a very busy Monday after a rough holiday. I know I was late dropping off my kid to school this morning.
I wanted to ask Coach a question before I leave today. Going back to that play that Ken was talking about, it's a 2-score game, and there's still 4.5 minutes to go in the football game. Yep. You see this a lot. Everyone's got a metric card. I think I would have taken the field goal, Coach, and made it a 1-possession game. I got the crowd on my hands. I got my defense. It's one of the best defenses in the country. I think I would have tried to get the ball back and then taken the overtime, because you needed 2 scores. And I know sometimes the frustration you get in those goal-to-goal situations, you're like, we're going to punch the ball in, fellas, because that means we only need 3 instead of 7. But I'm sorry. I think after the 3rd and 1 call, you kind of knew what you were getting if that was the same play call. I think I'd have taken the 3.
I don't disagree with that. And I always think to me, that's kind of a better approach, not necessarily in every situation, but almost all those situations. If you get the points, it kind of makes it a whole different game mentally too. Yeah. And they hadn't exactly been punching the thing in there all night long.
Right.
So, try to send a message to your players. Your players will send a message for the last 45, 50 minutes, and it is, you're not going to run the football in here. So, I would have kicked the field goal and tried to get the ball back and go from there. But I don't think A&M's been a complete football team since they started the quarterback rotation. Florida had that issue. There's a lot of examples. Can't go through all of them. And I said it earlier in the day. There's a lot of quarterback issues going on in some of these better teams, and they all got freckles. And Texas is one of them. You even had Ewers hurt, but they had a guy they could go to. But most of these teams have had quarterback issues. When you, like Auburn, you pull your good kid, play the young kid, try to go back to the old kid, and you just took his heart out about 4 weeks earlier. Good luck. And then you find you'll settle on the young kid, but he's not a complete quarterback right now. He's a wildcat. He's dangerous, but he's not a very good passer. And I think Texas took the right approach. They shut the running game down, and they didn't have a passing game. And they're not going to, I think, as long as they ride with that kid, they're going to have to ride with, just running the football.
Coach Matt and Coach Johnson, how much, I mean, look, I've heard even Urban Meyer say it takes work, blood, sweat, tears, and a little bit of luck, just to have a great season, right? You have to have a little luck on your side.
Sure.
I don't want to say convenient. That's why I'm struggling here. Graham Mertz getting hurt and Billy not having to really make that hard decision. Hey, my guy that just got me here, that road, he was, Graham Mertz was his one bright shining star last season. really, really, and he's such a loyal guy. How, I guess is Billy lucky to some extent that he didn't really have to
It's a good point. That's a good point. And
I'm not trying to take away
thing
from
that
his
I was
coaching
told,
ability.
the other thing I've always been told is that Graham was a tremendous leader, and he had the locker room. And so you're reluctant to pull that thing yourself because you may damage your team. And he had to because the other kid gets hurt. Then you got to make the decision, do I go back to him? Well, they had that one made for him too because Lagway got hurt. So Billy had a lot of overcome a lot of obstacles that weren't his fault, and he had bad luck with it. But you make a good point. That is one of the hardest decisions for a football coach to make. It's whether to stick with the older kid that everybody respects, but he's not really making it happen, and you need a better athlete in there that can help the rest of the team or something. That's a hard deal, man. And if you make that change, you better be right, because if you go back, it's not always the same kid that you left.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I think try to bring Rob back in there. Rob, you hear us or no?
Yeah, I can hear y'all. I don't know what.
You're super loud. Yeah. I think you're just having bad internet issues there, Rob.
Okay.
Are you there?
Yeah, I hear y'all, but I don't know if you can see me.
All right. Well, we'll just
see you.
We can see and hear you.
Yes.
Matt,
I can hear y'all. Yeah, you're fine.
Your mic is super loud, Rob. So if you can turn it down, that'd be cool. Matt, kind of pick up what hard, and I'm not trying to make Billy out to be something bad. Like he's not look, like I said, it takes a little luck, takes a little this, a little that to make it all, to work, to make a great thing work. Do you think, you agree with Coach there, or do you think it's, hey, look, it's just the way it is. It's battle. It's season. You just have to, you have to make it work.
Hey, I agree with Coach about everything he said today. That's number one. Number two, I coach basketball, so I equate my point guard a little bit like a quarterback. Okay. Sometimes when I have two, I have none. It's also why it was hard for me to recruit a point guard. If I have a really good one, he or she was going to play 3 or 4 years. So sometimes if I'm in a situation where my starting point guard is a junior, I'm recruiting a really good point guard, and he or she, because I coach men and women my whole career, they may not want to come because they know they're going to sit on the pine for a year at least before they play a lot of significant minutes. And I think that's the dilemma with quarterbacks in college football. That's why it's hard to keep them, because if you don't have them on the field, it's really unique. And I'll give you a situation that no one's even talked about here because you wouldn't know. You go to Oregon. Dillon Gabriel is a phenomenal leader of men. They recruited Dante Moore 2 years ago. He went to play for Chip Kelly at UCLA. Chip leaves. Dante has come back to play at Oregon. I say play. He has only played in 2 football games in 12. And there have been some blowouts because he is committed to being the quarterback next year. You rarely see that thing. Wow. And Ken, you made a great point. My son was on A&M staff. He had a part of the recruiting with Connor Wegman. He's a phenomenal human being. They went with the running option. Really, the LSU game, if they don't make that switch, Ken, I don't think they beat LSU. LSU was shutting them down, and the dual threat guy came in, Marcel Reed. He turned the whole football game around. But I think that's the dilemma. And now moving forward, Brendan, to your point, I think that's why Florida has a great pathway, because Lagway is going to be the leader of men. He's a tremendous young man, and he loves and is loyal to his head coach. I think that's very important. Loyalty
and to Gator Nation, I think that's important.
Yes, absolutely.
That he is loyal to Gator Nation. His family's loyal to Gator Nation.
In a time where loyalty doesn't exist that much anymore, to be honest with you, it's all about paycheck to paycheck. Where am I going?
It is. And look at it this way, guys. All we've been reading about for the last 2 months here in Texas is all these, and I really am going to make what I'm going to do is at the end of the season, I'm going to make a list of the stupidest headlines that I've read on social media in the past 2 months. And I hate to call anybody out because I'm a journalist and, everybody does their own thing. I do my thing. You do your thing. Everybody will be fine. But I've read some of the dumbest headlines, and they're all about Arch Manning transferring. Arch Manning is not going anywhere, people. I don't know why everybody keeps writing these.
I'm not trying. I got to pump the brakes with you, Ken, because you sent me some of these articles, and it's not your fault, by the way. I'm a social media I'm not a marketing person. Like, I actually understand algorithms and the science of social media, and what we're seeing, what you all are seeing is much what you saw. There are fake websites. A lot of them are fans in other fan bases, and they're just feeding like it's bots, and they're just feeding article.
Well, these are byline stories that I'm talking about.
Yeah, I know.
Just
You've
can't
sent them to
believe that
me. I'm
somebody
telling
could put
you,
a
but you've got to
byline.
look. You've got to look at where they're coming from, because they'll
Yes.
say XO123 Sports 1,
Right.
and but it came from SI. And and so they'll mask it, and look, it's to the point where, and I won't go into the whole thing, but we can't even police it as admins on social and Facebook, and so it's impossible. You can't keep up with it. So if you're going to get, I think the better point is, if you're going to get your news, go to the source. Don't go to social media to get it. Go to the website, go to the trusted source, go to to the root of it, so that you're getting, or come to us here at Sidelines and and watch a live show, and you get everything you need.
I only deal in facts and what I do.
This is like where the websites like GatorBait and things like that. Like, if you pay for a website subservice now, you're really paying to know that you're getting the real deal. So that's what we sell at GatorBait, and I know at Tighter Insider, and these guys, these are real journalists making their own places to keep their journalism and their integrity alive, and I that's important to what we do, and I think a lot of other people, and I know to Ken. So I didn't mean to cut you off, Ken, but you're right.
You didn't cut me off at all.
Yeah.
I just wanted to address Matt's point, because it's so true. I mean, the Manning family has handled Arch's career there at Texas so well, and Cooper, Dad Cooper, Grandpa, everybody's been involved in that thing. And, there is no wavering from Texas, from Arch Manning. And so every week that I read these bylined articles from reporters, I'm just thinking, where are you getting this information? Because it's 100% not true. And that's why I also thought it was brilliant, quite frankly, that Sark came up with this idea of, inserting Arch on those few plays there with that bum ankle from Ewers, but getting him in the game. He scores the first touchdown. Nobody saw that one coming, for sure. Now, like I said earlier, the Aggies figured it out later, but nobody saw that first touchdown coming. And of course, it was close, but they did do the replay, and showed that the ball crossed the plane. And but Arch is just an incredible human being, and I think the way he's handled himself this season has been great. And we all know, Ewers has been, all 3 years he's been there. He's been injured, 2 or 3 games every season. Somebody's had to come in and relieve him. But I'll just say this, because I know our time may be getting short here. Yep. Somebody sent me a really funny stat yesterday, and I got to share it. It said, do you know the only 2021 member of the Ohio State recruiting class to beat Michigan is Quinn Ewers?
That's pretty good.
Well, Ken, I want to say one thing, Brendan, to Ken, because obviously being a Longhorn, that was one of the most dominant 17-7 games. I mean, you look at that score, guys, that wasn't close. But credit A&M, defensive touchdown. Yep. That should have been points for the Longhorns, and a block punt that ends up getting stuffed at the goal line. That game could have been 31-34-0 in a flash. I tell you what, Texas right now, if they don't turn the ball over against Georgia, I agree with Ken. The way they're playing, the eye test, the Dino eye test, Texas right now looks like they are going to be really hard to beat in this playoff.
Yeah,
but,
I agree.
I think it'll be hard for Georgia to beat Texas twice. But anything can happen. Georgia's a great team. They've been there before. They understand. They're playing basically home field advantage there in Atlanta. They've got a lot of things going for them. I haven't seen the spread yet. What's the spread?
Well, I haven't even looked at it yet. It's Monday, but we'll take a look at that stuff later.
But I think it's going to be a great game. But you're 100% right.
3 points, I think. It's
close. It's going to be a close game.
Yeah.
Because Matt, the other thing you brought up is true. If Ewers doesn't get the ball punched out from behind when he's trying to scramble, that's another touchdown for Texas.
The game wasn't close. It wasn't close.
Yeah. It wasn't close. Then there were some fun games to watch. It was a fun weekend. Guys, we got to wrap it up. I want to say special thanks to all. Ken, we'll see you later this week, I'm sure. And Matt, I hope to see you soon. This week, I don't know what your schedule is. I appreciate you coming on. And Coach, always a pleasure to have you on the show. I'm speaking for Rob, of course, but, I tip the cap to you. Well, we'll see you next Monday, I hope, Coach. I don't know what our schedule is, but let's see if Rob can come in and say a quick goodbye to everybody. Rob, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here, and I don't know what happened, but Coach Johnson and Ken and Matt and Brendan, this has been an awesome discussion. Can y'all hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
I can.
Okay, and look, this is what I love, and we've got this much, I'd say, controversy, just so many good inputs. And Coach Johnson, tell us one last thing before you go, and I want to say about Landers Ford. They're open every day of the week except on Sundays.
Again. Let's see if we can bring him back. Oh, there. Are you back? You're back again. Go ahead, Rob.
Can you? Yeah. Landers Ford. Check them out. The QR code, $500 off right now for Sidelines members. Ask for Brad Bellamy, the general manager, the #1 Ford dealership in the Mid-South. Coach Johnson, tell us this. If you had to guess, how many SEC teams tomorrow night will be selected for the 12-team college football playoff?
3.
And they are.
Really? Wow.
Excuse me. Texas, Georgia, and Tennessee.
Okay.
Wow.
Now, that's tomorrow.
That's
You know,
right.
Tomorrow is a long way from that.
That's right.
Wow.
Especially
So
around
Coach,
here.
let me ask Coach one quick question. So, Coach, do you think then with that, and you're right, you think that means they're going to take Miami over the 4th SEC team? Is that what you're thinking right now,
I
or
think
no?
Miami's falling, and I'm kind of looking at the AP thing. So
Yeah.
getting a feel for it. So there's no scientific thing to this, but I do think when all clears and the smoke clears, if we don't have any crazy conference championship games, I think Alabama slips in.
Okay.
And they'll have 4 in.
So eventually 4. Right? Okay.
That's my guess.
I think you're right. I think you're right.
Yep.
I think you're right.
Okay.
Great. Well, hey, before we leave, I just want to tell y'all one other
I love
quick
having you
funny
stay on
story
longer
from
because this is a lot of
Kyle
fun.
Field before.
It's breaking up.
Yeah. Well, Coach, I mean, this has been an unbelievable discussion.
Hey, Coach, so let me just tell you one other funny story and tell our listeners one other funny story before we get out of here. I know it's short, but this is so funny. So,
Make it short, Kitty.
There were 100.
I think I'm holding the internet together with baling wire and chewing gum right now, buddy.
Hey, man, whatever it takes.
Get to it,
it's live TV.
Let's go, Texas.
I've been there for
Call
40
the Geek
years.
Squad.
But this is so funny. So, people were trying to, and then, this was the highest single ticket regular season game in the history of college and NFL football, over $1,000 a seat to get in. And that's just for starters. They were going up to $6,000, $7,000, $8,000. Two guys were arrested by the A&M police and given a criminal trespass ticket because they tried to get into the game. They dressed up as construction workers and they had on hard hats and orange vests and, work boots. And that sounds pretty convincing to me, but I guess the A&M PD there at the stadium sniffed them out and arrested them before they can get into the game. But that was just a pretty funny thing. And I thought, give those guys a little credit for creativity. But unfortunately, they were kicked out of the stadium with a criminal trespass ticket and did not see the game inside Kyle Field.
Don't get me started. There's whole documentaries on how to get into football games and stuff. I got friends that have done some crazy things that in the past and dressed up. Look, I'll tell you one thing. You put a ladder in your hand and you get another person to carry it. You can get in any place on the planet Earth. You walk in with a ladder in your hand and say, oh, yeah, we're coming in to fix something. You can walk into any place on the planet Earth, any stadium.
See, the guy should have a ladder.
All you need is a ladder, and you're fine. A ladder, and you walk in, and you're good. Coach, well, lots of great comments from you. Thanks for checking in. Ken, always great to check. Send me the pictures, Ken. I get the pictures. Between you and Rob and the group text, I think I don't know group text that entire women text as often as this group chat does on a Saturday. It's a little out of control, and I want to punch all of your man cards. And Coach Ellis Johnson understands what I'm doing. He'd help me do it. He's the guy's guy of all guys guy right there. So
they called me to be on the Geek Squad last week.
That's right. We need the Geek Squad.
Hey, Ken, what were you, if you had to pick the question that Rob had, I just wanted to follow up. It was a great question. Who are your teams as of tomorrow? What SEC teams get into, if any, in your picks?
Well, I tell you,
you're going to pick one, but I mean, how many do you think get in?
It's obvious Texas and Georgia are in.
Sure.
And I'll have a tweet later on this morning
Georgia,
on at Texas Six Man Ken from Sankey about this. But I agree with Coach. It's probably going to be Tennessee. But boy, you know who I would love to see sneak in there? South Carolina. God, will I love to see those guys sneak in there after what they've done this season. But I don't think it's going to happen. But that would be the holy cow moment if the committee somehow saw their win over Clemson, and then of course their conference record and what they've done in conference.
Sure.
But who knows? But I agree with Coach. If the odds-on bets are, if you're just going to stay conservative and do what everybody thinks you're going to do, I think it's going to be Tennessee.
Well, I think that's a good bet. I'll tell you what, as we wrap it up, but I would hate to be playing Florida right now. I think everyone's lucky they're not going to be getting into the playoff, because I think everyone's a little bit afraid of what not Texas, but the DJ Lagway and company, which is going to make next year all that much more exciting, right? I hope we go to 16 and we start pushing that. I'd like to just, like Urban Meyer says, let's bring them all in. Let's invite the whole cast and crew. Gentlemen, thanks for coming in. Always a great time to see you on the show. Rob, before Rob Brown, who is out there, it's probably all those guys hunting ducks. I gotta think. I know Rob's gonna take me duck hunting soon. Gentlemen, thanks for coming in. We wish you a good, happy Monday. We'll talk to you soon. Those guys are Rob Brown, as I stumble through his close here. Thanks to all of our sponsors. Thanks to all of our guests that come on. You can check out all of our sponsors at sidelines.live. That's www.sidelines.live. You can check it out. Then go in there and see where our sponsors are listed. You can tweet us at Twitter at Rob Brown. So you can tweet him and say, hey, Rob, get your internet fixed. And we want to say thanks to all of our sponsors and everyone else who's watching our show. And you definitely make the show. So thank you to Scott Trapp, Mari Gaston, Terry Crawford, and the rest of thousands that make this show possible. And of course, Rob Brown will be back with you tomorrow and probably tonight. So, and if you need anything else, you can always call the 1-800 line here in the studio, because I never leave. With that, we'll see you tomorrow. Watch the Buddy Martin Show tonight, live, 9 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Central, and then join us back here tomorrow morning. And sidelines .live. You can watch the show, and you can watch on our Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Sorry, if you saw all the monitors in front of me right now, you'd be like, I don't even know how he's talking. So thanks, everyone. I don't know I think it's the face of Christ amongst us. I just say God bless. Y'all be good to each other, and I always say go Gators. So talk to y'all tomorrow, and make sure you watch tonight.
In a perfect world, you'd set a health goal and results would happen overnight. In this world, the real world, it takes time, dedication, and the right support to achieve your best self. The Vitamin Shop's health enthusiasts are here to make sure you're not wasting a single moment on the wrong supplements. From the highest quality sports nutrition and superfoods to the most sought after trends, you'll find a huge variety of science-backed solutions for every goal, and the people to help guide you along the path to greatness.
Unbelievably, every 2 minutes in our communities, a child is either bought or sold for sex. I am Ari Dickey, board member for the Nashville Anti-Human Trafficking Coalition. Join me and millions of others in our fight against human trafficking and for its victims by helping to educate the most vulnerable among us, our middle and high school students. Go to nhtcoalition.org, become a partner, and help keep our families safe, because none of God's children are for sale.